So, with Spider-Man Miles Morales earning a lot of praise recently, I want to talk about the future of this series, because it is very much inevitable that a sequel is coming, because, well, the last two were very popular. I mean, Spider-Man PS4 sold more copies than Arkham City, for God's sake, so it's almost certain we're getting a sequel. So, I want to first talk about some potential plot points for the sequel, and as we saw in the first game, I think one focus of the story will be the return of Harry Osborn, as the end credit scenes for both previous games suggested. I do also think that another plot point could even address Norman becoming the Green Goblin, but I do have an even better idea. The end credit scenes do seem to suggest that Harry may have been infected with the Venom symbiote, and that is something the story should actually explore. Now, I do think we will get more villains in the game than maybe either Norman or Harry. The Kingpin is definitely a fair bet, seeing as he made a threat to Miles in his game, and speaking of Miles, I want to address whether he'll appear in the game. But I'll just finish off what I was going to say about Kingpin. I remember seeing a theory by Watch Mojo that said maybe Fisk can actually bankroll his way out of prison, like he can maybe get paroled or something, though I find it unlikely he's going to get parole anytime soon. But still, it would be pretty cool to see Kingpin out of jail, though I kind of think he's already served his purpose story-wise in this universe. Anyway, moving back to Miles, will he appear in the game? I'm going to say a very, very strong maybe, because I think Miles' game was kind of a separate story to Peter's, and I think that maybe Miles will have his own series, like maybe his own expansive series on top of the Spider-Man games, like the main Spider-Man game. And though it would be cool to see Miles show up maybe in like a cameo or something, though I think we've kind of played enough of Miles in the main games, so maybe just keep Miles in his games and maybe have him show up for like a cameo here and there. Okay, moving back to villains. There are some Easter eggs in the first game that seem to indicate that villains such as Mysterio, Lizard, and the Sandman do exist in this universe, and Curt Connors did appear in the end credit scene for Miles Morales, so I think it would be cool to see these villains potentially appear, especially if Insomniac draws inspiration from the Arkham games for a Mysterio boss fight, because that would be pretty cool to see, because Mysterio is always known for like all these weird mirages and whatnot, like smoke and mirrors if you will. And that would be cool to see in an actual game. It could even be like the Scarecrow fights in Arkham Asylum if it's that good. Another question I have is whether the symbiote, if at all, will appear in the sequel, and will it lead to the appearance of Eddie Brock, the first Venom? I would say probably not, because I think the games are teasing Harry Osborn to become a Green Goblin type villain who actually uses the Venom symbiote. So, one idea that I had was to see Norman become Green Goblin, but also Harry as well, and I'm just going to explain that in a lot more detail than you might think. So quite a while ago, I was working on a script for an animated Spider-Man feature called Wrath of the Goblin, and it was going to focus on the night Gwen Stacy died storyline, but with a few twists. Firstly, Green Goblin would have already been established in the universe, and Norman has already forgotten his time as Green Goblin, but he's going to somehow remember that time, and he decides to destroy everything Spider-Man loves. So he becomes a version of Green Goblin that you probably wouldn't expect. So my plan was for Norman to become the Ultimate Universe version of the character, and he was essentially going to cause a lot of problems for Spider-Man. But then I also had the idea for Harry Osborn to become Green Goblin, but mainly because I wanted him to have the same feel of James Franco in Spider-Man 3, like he was a more anti-hero-like version of the character. I mean, he wasn't necessarily a villain in that film, he just really wanted revenge for Spider-Man quote-unquote killing his dad, and when that was proved to not be true, he becomes essentially a hero again. Well, essentially he just becomes a hero, and that would be cool to see in the game, like maybe Harry, yes, he still has the Venom symbiote, maybe he also helps Spider-Man fight alongside himself. Like, he helps Spider-Man fight together and the two fight Norman Osborn, who is probably going to be Ultimate Universe Green Goblin. And that's not something that's been heard of before, because the Ultimate Universe Green Goblin, from my understanding, was going to appear in one of the Amazing Spider-Man sequels. I will give you a few seconds to figure out why that wouldn't work. It got cancelled. Anyway, it would be pretty cool to see that idea played out in the game, but I do kind of doubt it. And I would also love to see a cameo from like maybe another Marvel character, though some licensing issues might affect that. I mean, it would be cool to at least see one famous Avenger, or maybe even someone from Fantastic Four, or maybe the X-Men. And plus, we might even get some really cool landmarks, like if there's going to be more of New York being explored in the sequel, I kind of doubt it, we could even see more areas in this universe, like we could even get indication that the X-Men or the Fantastic Four exist. And that would be pretty cool to see. Like maybe these are parts of the landmark tokens. Not sure if they're gonna reappear in the sequel, but would be cool. We could see Peter taking pictures of the X-Mansion or the Baxter Building. It would be really cool to see some indication that yes, these characters exist in the Insomniac/Sony universe. Anyway, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. It would be cool to see them pop up, maybe at some point. Though I think maybe the X-Men and Fantastic Four should stay as Easter eggs because licensing issues. And plus, I doubt Insomniac would want to include the Avengers because their game didn't really do so well. Like the Crystal Dynamics Avengers game hasn't really done super well. So led to quite a lot of money being lost by the studios, so yeah. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the future of the Insomniac Spider-Man game series. If you guys are interested in some more ideas, then let me know in the comments and I will try and make another video about it. And if you guys are interested in more of our videos, then go to the channel, hit subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss any more notifications. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.